Hello friends, my name is Catherine Kalu and welcome to Soul Chats.
Even the spiders take their time, winding their webs with delicate threads, and we can sit and watch as the moon rises, and an army of clouds climb over the mountains as peaceful as a fallen tree, and as wild as a sycamore seed.
So today's episode is going to be a bit different. I really want to kind of have you guys get to know me a bit more. That might sound egotistical, I don't know. But I really make an effort to, as much as each episode is a chat and I definitely weigh my 2 cents, I definitely speak a lot and give a lot of my own opinions and thoughts on things. I do try to, prioritize my guest. So I feel like in some ways, I feel like there's just more to me that I would love for you guys to get to know. So I'm going to try out these kind of shorter solo episodes where I just kind of chat and we'll see how this goes. Today is definitely going to be more of a free-flowing type thing. It's going to be a lot of stream of consciousness, but in the future we might do more Q&As or maybe specific topic conversations specifically. So we're just kind of going off the cuff here, and I'm really excited about it. I have a glass of wine with me. I have my lavender essential oils going off, and I'm just feeling good. So I'm gonna start this off kind of how I would with a typical chat. I'll let you know how my soul's doing in case anyone out there is curious. I'm feeling good. I've kind of mentioned it in some episodes, but I moved out of my parents' home in LA where I was born and raised for half my life. And am back down in Orange County where I went to school and where I went to college at Chapman University. And I was also raised here, childhood, preteens. So been back and forth between LA and Orange County, which is an hour south of LA, if you don't know it. Also, I shouldn't point this out, but I do say a lot. And one thing I'm trying to work on is being okay with silence. I think is my way of kind of filling the silence. And I'm trying to recognize the power of silence more so. So I'm going to be working on that. You're definitely going to notice me say and a lot more now that I've pointed it out. But there we go again. Definitely be patient with me. And it's just something I'm working on, and whatever. It's something I've been thinking about. But yeah, so I'm back down in Orange County. I'm living in Tustin, which is a city I've never lived in before. And it's been an experience for sure. I think I'm very lucky that I had the opportunity to go home and be with my family for a good amount of time. And I'm also very lucky to have had the opportunity to be able to move into my own place with a roommate. I go to school in Orange County. I'm currently getting my master's at Chapman University in health and strategic communication. And originally when I signed my leave to move down here, we were still planning on going back to school. And it wasn't until a week or two after I'd already moved in here where they were yeah, we're actually going to go online, which we should. We definitely should. We were not, California's not, most of the country's not ready to go back to school. So I'm grateful for that. But yeah, so it's me and a roommate who's one of my best friends, and it's been super great so far. I got to be here alone for a few weeks, before my roommate moved in, kind of. And last year, I've mentioned me going abroad so many times, but it was really a huge growing and a very monumental experience for me. So I do mention it a lot. I hope it's not too annoying, but I studied abroad in Prague in the Czech Republic spring of last year, so 2019, as a junior in college. And it was honestly just like a really, really difficult time for me personally. My mental health really declined and I had an existential crisis. It was definitely one of my valleys in life for sure. But I am very grateful to kind of be on the other side of that. And looking back, like one thing I really remember from it was I was so scared of my own thoughts at points where I would want to be with people as much as possible because it would be kind of like a distraction and me not being alone and not having to listen to myself. So I kind of eventually developed kind of like separation anxiety in a way almost when I was abroad, where like I would not want to be alone just because it was such a toxic relationship with myself, kind of. So it took me all year. It took me coming back. It took, most of my senior year for me to finally get comfortable with being alone again, let alone enjoying my own company. So I've always lived with roommates, and when I lived at home, my grandma and dad were at home always. So like I haven't been alone in a while. So when I knew I was moving out to Orange County or back down here for school, and then I was gonna be alone for a few weeks, I was pretty anxious about it, to be honest with you. I just it was almost triggering in a way. It kind of took me back to abroad last year when I was alone, and I was just kind of like, are those thoughts going to come back? What am I going to do? Kind of all by myself. And I think especially in quarantine during, all of this, whereas before I could kind of explore, go to a coffee shop, like do things. Here I'm pretty limited. I try to stay home as much as I can. And obviously we have restrictions. So it's a whole new type of isolation. And I honestly really surprisingly enjoyed my time alone here. And I truly do think a part of it is soul chats. Like, this has been such purpose and passion to me. And I'm also a very like goal driven, like always have to be kind of doing something type of person. And I think, like, I don't know, I enjoy procrastinating in a way because that means I have something to do. Whereas when I have nothing to do and I'm doing nothing, it's just, you know what I mean? I don't know if that's relatable. Maybe it's just me, but maybe that's part of it. Maybe I didn't, have that last year, even though I, was obviously in school last year too, but I don't know. But it was a really awesome experience. Like, I read a lot, I worked on soul chats a lot. There's this really, really precious park by my house that's just really been special to me. It's kind of my like outdoor oasis. It's been really hot lately, so I haven't had a chance to kind of go check it out, but it's like a 4-minute walk, if even that, from my place. And it's never busy. There's always like, a couple people, but easily social distance. And yeah, it's just really awesome. I've, really enjoyed it. And yeah, it's interesting because I think what I'm recognizing now is so I've been raised an only child. I've always kind of thought that I was okay with being alone, and that's true. I think I've always been okay with it, but I don't know if I've ever enjoyed it. I'm an extrovert for sure, so other people is definitely give me energy. Like when my roommate moved back in, like she was just talking to me and I was just like jumping up and down and she's like, what are you doing? And I didn't even realize it. And I was like, I'm just so energized right now. Like, I think I'm just so excited to be talking to someone. Like, it's just the extrovert in me, which was just so funny because for a minute there, I was like, I'm an introvert now. And I was like, no, you're definitely an extrovert. You just appreciate and enjoy time alone, even if that's not how you get energy from it. But yeah, I think I really learned what self-love means to me. And that episode with Jordan, episode 3, was a really important conversation for me, because that's definitely been really important in my life. I think in my 20s. I'm 21. I'm turning 22 tomorrow. This episode will be released the day before my 22nd birthday. But a lot of my 20s, I think, has been defined by, again, 20s, like, oh well, but by this idea of self-love and what that means, and enjoying my own company is really integral to that. So it just makes me so happy that I kind of enjoy my own company. Not always. I think I definitely still distract myself with social media and, you know, doing things and distracting myself. Like, I think there's a very, very, very fine line between enjoying your own company and distracting yourself from yourself. And I think sometimes we lie to ourselves a little bit and say, oh, this is me enjoying my company, when really it's you just distracting yourself. I mentioned in Christina's episode 5, I'm losing track now, but that I was kind of going on like a mindful retreat, and that was a couple weekends ago now, I think. Yeah. Which was so awesome. It was really, and I mean that in a literal sense, like awesome, like full of awe. I'm gonna take a sip of wine, one sec. But it was such a beautiful experience, and something, since, again, abroad, but since I've come back from abroad, I've really had this kind of like feeling in my gut to kind of just go away from everything for a couple of days, just kind of like completely isolate myself, alone in like a space without social media, without connecting with the outside world, and just kind of sit and think and write and read and you know, all of that good mindful stuff. And I was talking with a friend during quarantine, and she was like, oh yeah, like I really want to like go on like a little mindful retreat. Like I just want to like spend a weekend alone and like think and do nothing. And I was like, oh my gosh, like you totally have to do that. I want to do that. Like that's something I really want to do, and that's super awesome. I think you should totally do it. And she's someone who has been quarantining very, very well. And so we eventually decided to actually do it together. So it was like one of the only times I've ever hung out with someone during quarantine, like in an indoor setting that's not like socially distanced and stuff. But she came over because I kind of had the space alone, and we spent a couple days and a few nights together. We did have our phones on, like for parents and like texting and stuff, but we did not go on social media at all. We did Spotify for like some podcast episodes and stuff, but we just talked for hours. We went to that park that I mentioned earlier, and we sat in the shade on a blanket and got sunburned. Like she got like not third degrees, but like really bad burns. Like it's bad. I burnt, even though we were in the shade, we were like, what the hell? But we literally just talked for like hours. And before, we'd made like a shared note list of like what some like topics we wanted to address. And there was just like crazy stuff on there, like existentialism and like aliens, and literally trauma was one of the things on the list. So we went into it kind of jokingly, like, this is a meme. Like, what are we going to do? Like, I'm nervous for us. But she and I have very, very similar communication styles. So it was a really comfortable and like effective space, if that makes sense. And it's just so funny because I remember we talked about a lot of things, but like one of them was like spirituality and existentialism. I'm a huge existentialist, I've kind of discovered, and like theologian and philosopher. Like I just really like love talking about like spirituality and culture and anthropology and all of the things. Like, I really enjoy that kind of stuff. That's kind of, as you can see, soul chats. That's literally what I guess I kind of do here. But we, talked about it like so extensively. And I remember like the things I was talking with her about were the same thoughts I had last year that were causing me so much anxiety. And I was like, I took a moment and I was like, first of all, wow, what a difference a year can make. Like, I remember having these thoughts last year and literally would, take me down this dark hole. And now I can speak about it and be okay. And enjoy this again, like enjoy this part of me, this like curious soul that I am. And it was so funny because one of the things we talked about, so one of the things that I've really, really been thinking about kind of like in those few weeks, like one of the intentions I set was the idea of the ego. And I might be repeating some of the stuff I said in Christina's episode on spirituality, so forgive me, but this idea of the ego, and I read this, or I definitely mentioned this, but I read this quote last year when I was abroad, and like my voice inside of my head was not being very kind to me, and it said the voice inside your head is not your own. And that was really comforting to me at the time, because again, like my voice inside my head was not being very kind to me at the time. And I was like, cool, okay, I'm not being mean to myself. Like, that's awesome. That's great. Didn't know who that was then, because I was like, okay, if it's not me, who is that? And I just I never answered that. I just kind of went on and, was like, I don't know who it is. So come to like now when I've kind of set the idea of the ego as my intention, I think partly like, to me, emotion has always been the language of the divine. I think emotion is something experienced by every single soul in this universe, on this planet, is my experience, obviously. And it's such power. And it's so intrinsic. Like every single being experiences emotion. There's no privilege associated with it. You just do. And that's like the divine spirit to me. And so I was like, intuition, emotion, that's the divine, right? And I kind of came up with this idea of like, that voice inside my head, that's the ego, And it's not necessarily like at odds and like fighting that intuition in me, but doesn't always agree, certainly. And it's very concerned with irrelevant things. So like one of my friends, shout out Shannon, I give her this piece of advice every time she asks me for advice. And I tell her, Shannon, is it what you want? Is it what you need? Then do it. Then it's okay. Doesn't matter what anyone else thinks, or nothing matters. Like, if it's what you want or what you need, then that's important. And where that becomes difficult is sometimes what you want, what you need are different things. And I think that's where I struggle with my own advice in a sense. But it kind of like leans back into this idea of intuition. Like, what you want, what you need are so integral, and the ego is kind of like everyone else kind of manifested in your head, speaking to you through this like inside voice. And it's interesting because I've never really talked to my ego before I lived alone. And I don't know if this sounds crazy. Some people definitely think I'm crazy, but that's okay. But I I was in the bathtub one night and I was really reflecting on the ego. And I had this thought, which is kind of ironic because the thought was, I don't think about things. Like with the ego, when I told myself, okay, think about the ego, I just kind of said that to myself. And then I never like thought it out. And then, I don't know, I thought about it again later, or like it came back up in my mind later in my active conscious. And there were thoughts, you know? And I was like, whose thoughts are these? Like, I didn't think this through. And I don't think about things. Like, I don't know if that makes sense. Like, I kind of present them to myself. I present these topics or things I want to think about. I kind of just put it there. It kind of just goes in the back of my mind. And then a little later, I'll reintroduce it to the forefront of my mind. And there's, new things there. And I don't know what that is necessarily. It could be a past lives type of thing. I believe in past lives and past experiences beyond the one I'm currently in. Or it could be whatever you want to call it, whether that's God, the divine, the universe. Like, I think it's more of that. And I was talking with this friend during the retreat, and I have not very unique views, but I have kind of a different view from a lot of my direct kind of network in terms of spirituality. I have a lot of friends that are religious, which is awesome, who believe in this idea of God, and a lot of them are, Christians or Jews or Catholics or, that's kind of my direct network, which is awesome and great. I was raised Jewish myself. My mom's Catholic. I grew up in a very prominent Christian community, so I've gotten a taste of kind of everything, and I personally just never felt connected with it. There was always something about one of them that just didn't connect with me. And I kind of eventually came up with this idea of the universe. And first of all, like I mentioned this to my friend too, but to me, we all just have our own language and vocabulary for things. I truly, truly believe it's all the same thing we're talking about. What you might call God, that I might call the divine, that someone else might call the universe, that someone else might call Hashem, who, or spirits, or, there's so many beautiful beliefs out there. And I truly think that we're all just put our own language to it that makes the most sense and brings the most comfort to us. So for me, it's the universe, the divine. I like that. So I personally think that the divine is made up of all of us. Every living thing, like, and not living, honestly. Like, everything has a vibration and energy. Like, everything is connected to the divine. Everything is a divine, and it's. One of the things that really tripped me out last year was, when I was abroad, was kind of like what my purpose was. And it eventually like kind of spiraled into what is purpose? Like, what is anyone's purpose, or everyone's purpose, or life's purpose, or this world's purpose? And it kind of freaked me out because there's not really, an answer to that, I think, personally. And for me, what I've kind of come up with, and I think one of my friends, McKenna, introduced this kind of idea to me. I don't know if I took it and ran with it or if it's still similar. But it's this idea that, we're all the divine. We all come from the same place and the same energy and the same divinity. And we've kind of created life and these worlds and this universe and such to kind of live out and learn and bring it back to the collective and that divinity that we're all a part of. So I think we're all divine and we're all beautiful and we're all that. And that's what emotion is. That's why we all experience emotion. We're all the divine in different forms, manifested in different ways. So the ego is, I don't know where it comes from. I don't know if someone might think of it as the devil, or, you know, again, everyone has a different language to everything. But the ego kind of fights that. I think it's our, you know, quote unquote humanity in a way. It's like the man, oh well, the man in us. I don't mean that in like a sex or gender sense. I mean that in like a species sense. You know, or the mortal, maybe mortal, that's the better word. But it kind of pushes against that. And it was just, you know, I've just been having all these thoughts and stuff. And I was talking with my friend about it during that mindful retreat. And she really resonated with it. And I really resonated with a lot of what she had to say. And it was just a really beautiful time. And it was so relieving, almost, I want to say, that I could speak about this and enjoy it again. And find comfort in it again. And one of the things I kind of told her that's a bit more personal, I kind of remember pre-abroad and just like trusting the universe like so strong. Like I still had anxiety and stuff, but like at the end of the day, like there was like a part of me that was just like so grounded and like, it's gonna be okay. Like the universe is fine. It'll guide me. And I would, you know, have to reconnect with it through, I used to do yoga and painting and stuff. And I remember I went abroad and I just lost that, like, not a feeling, like presence. Maybe that's the word. I lost that presence. I don't know if lost is the correct word. Maybe disconnected is. And I was telling her, like, I honestly don't know if I've felt it again since, which really bummed me out. And I like kept talking with her and I was like, well, maybe it's not lost. Maybe it's not even disconnected. Maybe it's different. Maybe it's manifested into who I am now, and this self-love with myself. Oh well. This love for myself, this enjoyment of my own company, maybe that's the new manifestation of like trust in the divinity, because I used to think of it as this external being, when instead I've now kind of recognized like, yes, it is still external because we all one, and it manifests in you who's listening to this, or, you know, nature, animals, whatever, everything. And maybe now I recognize it in myself more, and I trust myself, and maybe that just feels different. So that's something I'm still kind of presented to my conscious and is kind of having sit back there and thinking about. But yeah, I've never been like I have been a journaler, that's a lie, but I've written like little journal entries and stuff here and there. Most of them are like kind of not emo, like rant emo. I found a couple journal entries from like freshman year, and I did a couple while I was abroad. But I've never been like a consistent journaler. It's just, it's almost like writer's block, I guess, in a sense, where like I'll look at a page and I'm just like, I don't know what I have to say. And I'll sit there and I put too much pressure on it, I think, is my issue. And then also, if I do have something, I'm like, oh yes, this is it, and I start writing it down, it's like first of all, my emotion can't be translated into like written word. Like there's something that's lost there. You know what I mean? I think, but also I can't keep up. Like my thoughts move so quickly and I have so much I want to say so quickly that it becomes frustrating because I'm like, this isn't doing it for me. So I do enjoy talking, and that's probably why I wanted to do kind of a solo episode, was just to talk with myself, because I was like, I don't know, maybe things will come out. But yeah, I've really been listening to Alan Watts, who's one of my favorite people. If like I had a dinner where I can invite anyone living or dead, he'd definitely be on that list. I think he's amazing and profound. He was a philosopher in the 20th century, I believe. He's now passed. I would highly recommend. I mentioned him before in Genevieve's episode on creativity, but highly recommend listening to some of his lectures that you can find on YouTube, or there's a podcast that posted a bunch of his. So if you literally just look up Alan Watts and Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts, you can probably easily find it. But he is super great, and I've been listening to him a lot. And if you're intrigued at all by what I have to say, I'm not explaining it nearly as well as him. But what was really cool was the last day of our little mini retreat, I woke up earlier than my friend. And again, remember, we weren't going on our phones and stuff. So I was like, okay, like I woke up and like went to pee. And I was like thinking, I was like, okay, what am I going to do? Like, while she's not awake, like, should I meditate? Should I like doze? Should I like make coffee? Should I listen to a podcast? And I was like, oh, and I'm currently reading The Alchemist, which is taking me so long. I actually started that while I was abroad and just wasn't in the headspace to be reading that. And I finally got to the headspace where I'm able to read it. So I'm starting it from the beginning, and it's such a great book. I would, so again, in that realm of like universe, spirituality, all that, like it's such beautiful. It's a story, but it's presenting lesson through symbolism, and it's just amazingly profound. So I highly recommend it. But I was like, oh, should I like go read that? And something inside of me, again, intuition. I have this book that my friend gave me so long ago, and I feel so terrible because it's her favorite book. And she gave it to me so long ago. And I've literally actually been meaning to like mail it to her. I've been meaning to ask her address. Sorry, CJ, if you're listening. CJ is also the person who's done our theme music. Shout out, CJ. Love her. But she let me borrow this book, Conversations with God, and I've just never read it. Like, I just never found that. I don't know. It's just excuses, whatever. I just never felt inclined to until that morning. And I was like, something inside of me is just telling me, go read that book. So I did. I picked it up and I started it. I read the little preface and started reading the chapter and stuff, and literally got to page 12, and I texted my friend and I was like, the minute you wake up, like, get in my room. Like, I need to talk with you. Like, I'm having so many thoughts, and felt so seen. Because literally on page 3, which is also my favorite number, it says, feeling is the language of the soul. And I read that, and I literally like put down the book, and I was like, holy shit. Like, that's like, emotion is the language of the divine. Feeling is the language of the soul. Like, yeah. I was like, okay. Like, and I know I was like, I probably like heard this from a friend, whatever. And I was like, maybe they read this book. But it just felt so, also the use of like the word soul. Obviously soul is like important and really special to me. I love that word. I think it encompasses so many of my values and beliefs. And just hearing it, just like, or reading it was just like, wow. And it just, like, it was just so insane. And you should read this book also, just book recommendations left and right, but you really should. One of the things, again, I talked about with my friend was kind of this idea of emotion versus, like, I remember a while ago, I like had a discussion with a friend, and I was like, who's religious, and I was kind of telling her my like spirituality and beliefs, and she was kind of like a little confused and just like, like interested by it, and was kind of like, well, Catherine, where did you like get this from? I was like, oh, like, what do you mean? She's like, well, like, I have like the Bible, like, that's my foundation for my faith. Like, where are you getting this, And that really took me aback, because I was like, I don't have, there's no written texts that I like believe in, because I think feeling and emotion and intuition, personally, I just think it's so much more, I don't want to be offensive. I don't think the word's valuable. I can't think of the right word here, but it's just so much more valuable than, written word. Because I don't know, that's just what I've always believed. And she was just kind of like, oh, okay, like, interesting, like, like, respected it, whatever, but like, just didn't quite get it. And I was talking with my friend during our little retreat, and she was like, yeah, there's like the written word and all that. And I was like, yeah, I've just never connected with the Torah or the Bible. Like, there's definitely, verses and quotes from it that I admire and I repeat. Like, this too shall pass is one of my favorite quotes and little affirmation reminder things. But it always seemed kind of like a supplement to me, rather than like faith is a feeling, written word, whether that's the Bible, the Torah, the Quran, and like, I'm not super educated on various religions besides Judeo-Christianity. I'm so sorry, but what may have you. I've always thought them as kind of supplementary and kind of not an add-on, but it's faith is a feeling, and that's the foundation to like religion, spirituality, what have you. And in this book, they explain it so perfectly. They say, I want to find it talks about the limitation of words. And it says, and this is, so the whole premise of the book is this guy literally has a conversation with God. He writes out his, he's always like written letters to people as his like kind of self-therapy. And one time he wrote a letter to God, and God started responding through him, which is super interesting. I was kind of skeptical going into it, because I was kind of like, okay, like, whatever. And, I don't know, but this was just so profound. And so God in this book says, my most common form of communication is through feeling. And then it goes on to say, I also communicate with thought. I also use the vehicle of experience. And finally, when feelings and thoughts and experiences all fail, I use words. Words are really the least effective communication, because they're often up to the most misinterpretation, most often misunderstood. Words are merely utterances, noises that stand for feelings, thoughts, and experiences. They're symbols. And I was like, yes, like, that is the most perfect explanation of it. And I was just, that's on, like, again, page 3, and it just goes on to have all these, I'm still going through it, I'm still reading through it and stuff, and it's super awesome because my friend wrote notes in it since it's her favorite book, but it just really, really resonated with me, and I was kind of like, wow, like, intuition, like, I knew that's what I needed to read at that moment, and it's literally was a manifestation of my thoughts and feelings that weekend. So it was just so cool. And another one of my favorite things from that weekend was my friend brought her Bible with her, and it was, we were talking about ego, and I was like, yeah, like, humans, like, man is the most egotistical, and I think that's why we've gotten so disconnected from the divinity and from intuition and emotion, and we've paid so much attention to the ego, and that's why I personally think we're not in a great space in terms of where our society and planet and what have you is. And I was like, it's so, another book recommendation. If you know me, my absolute favorite book in the entire world is called Ishmael. I could do a whole podcast episode on that. Honestly, I might, because it's just so amazingly profound. But it really talks about how, partly because of religion and because of the Bible and such, like, man has really thought of ourselves as the chosen ones, and therefore I know my friend mentioned specifically there's, quotes in specifically the New Testament that talks about how, this land and these animals are for like us to consume and enjoy. And I was like, that's so interesting. And I was like, and she's like, but it's also interesting because she was in her process of like rereading her Bible, and she's like, yeah, like I remember in Genesis, like man wasn't created in the first 7 days. And I was like, what? She was like, yeah, like God created, the planet, the universe, whatever, like 6 days, the 7th day he rested, and then he created man. And I was like, that's so great, like that's crazy. Can you pull up that verse? Like want to read it. And we pulled it up, and I kind of want to find the exact Bible verse now because it was so profound. Okay, I found it. So in the NIV, New International Version, man isn't introduced until verse 2. I think that's verse. I don't know the correct term, but it says, and this is after the 7 days, but it says, the Lord God took the man and put him in the garden to work it and take care of it. I'm going to say it again. The Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and take care of it. And the Lord God commanded the man, you are free to eat from any tree in the garden, but you must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for when you eat from it, you will certainly die. That second part, I know that's a very contentious point, but I'll go back to the first because that's what really hit me. God in the Bible literally says the first introduction of man, man was put on this earth to work and take care of it. And he's like, yeah, you can eat from it, but that's not why we were put here. And I think that was like so profound to me and to her. She was like shocked. She was like, wow, that's so crazy. When I was like rereading it, I didn't even like pick up on that. Like I think a lot of people pay attention to the, you must not eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And like not pay attention or choose not to pay attention to, I don't know, but that really hit me because especially I'm such an advocate for sustainability, and I try to live a sustainable lifestyle and obviously care a lot about the climate crisis and such. And I think you can translate and kind of interpret the Garden of Eden whatever way you feel inclined to. But anyways, I'm going to stop it there. That was kind of a ramble. I hope you enjoyed it. It was really fun for me, and I kind of mentioned in Christina's episode that I might do a little recap on the mindful retreat. So I kind of did there. So I hope you enjoyed that. Let me know if you like these. Maybe I'll do a Q&A one, or I might do, again, like I mentioned, a topic one or something. Or I might just stick to the chats with other people, because other people's also really cool. So yeah, I think one thing I want to manifest to kind of close up this episode is continued growth in my relationship with myself. Yeah, I think that's a good one. Thank you so much for listening. I sincerely love every single one of you. And have a great day, night, evening, afternoon, what have you. Have a great one. Talk to you next time. Bye.
I decide to enjoy.
Soul Chats is created and produced by me, Catherine Kalu. Branding and design is completed by Tracy Keller. Theme music is Buen Camino by Miss Brightsea. Be sure to check out and support these fellow creatives by visiting my website, soulchatsbycatherine.com. While you're there, be sure to also check out episode notes, which include some questions brought up during today's episode to keep in mind for the week, as well as our guest links if you'd like to follow them and get to know them a bit more. You can also find links to the show's social media platforms where you can keep up with what Soul Chats is doing next and connect with our community. And of course, please do not forget to subscribe to Soul Chats wherever you listen to podcasts. All right, thanks so much, friends. I'll see you next week.